This conference will now be recorded.
All right, it is now 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday, June 30th, 2023, and I'll call this regular meeting of council to order. Thank you, Dennis. I respectfully acknowledge that we are meeting on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional lands of the Cree and the Anishinaabe, and the homeland of the Red River Métis. I would also like to acknowledge that tomorrow, June 21st, is National Indigenous Peoples Day. On behalf of council and the municipality, I wish to offer our deepest condolences to everyone impacted by the tragic accident near the town of Carberry. Our thoughts are with those affected and impacted. Sorry, let me try this on. I'll go back. On behalf of council and the municipality, I wish to offer our deepest condolences to everyone impacted by the tragic accident near the town of Carberry. Our thoughts are also with all affected municipalities whose communities are feeling unspeakable pain and heartbreak. We thank all the emergency personnel and healthcare professionals who are assisting with this devastating tragedy. Tragedies like this are something that municipalities hope they never have to face. Our community, our council, is receiving emergency operations training to deal with traumatic incidents like this and to learn how to organize our community should another kind of emergency occur. We have a tabletop training session scheduled with our emergency coordinator on July 12th here at the Social Scene from 1 until 4. And all are welcome to attend, participate in some way, and learn what you too can do in an emergency situation in our community. So please stay tuned for further information on this exercise. Introductions around the table. Steve, do you want to start with you on camera? Steve Axworthy's coming to us from Birtle.
Hello, Steve Axworthy. Yeah, sure. Coming from Birtle, announcer.
Thanks, Steve. On my far left.
Ian Chatsey. Ian Chatsey, councillor. Turn it on.
Lon Turner, CAO.
Penny McMorris, Mayor.
Erwin Cupgood, Councilor.
Graham Randall, councillor.
Thank you, gentlemen. So, agenda. Be it resolved, the agenda be adopted as presented. May I have a mover? Graham, thank you. Second, Ian. Thank you. Are there any additions to tonight's agenda, gentlemen? Steve?
I'm not sure if you guys got that email I sent out a little bit earlier, but I'd like to just add that the municipality petitions the province to include electric vehicles to our vehicle restriction bylaw.
But they are considered a vehicle. So
I don't mean electric vehicles as in Teslas. I mean electric vehicles as in scooters, bicycles, etc.
if you look at at
the very least, just to have a discussion over it would be sufficient at this point.
Okay, so you want to add electric bikes?
Discussion.
Discussion?
Sure, that's more than fair for now.
Okay. All right, any other additions, gentlemen?
Yeah, there's two from the office, variance order extension application. And if we need it for this year, the Moonlight Inn lease for 2023, I didn't realize those were only 1 year leases.
Just the Moonlight one is.
Yeah, I didn't know, I missed that.
Okay.
What was the other one, please?
The Moonlight Inn lease and the variance order and application for an extension of 1 year.
Oh, that one, okay.
Gotcha.
All right, and deleted, the delegation is not here this evening. All right. Okay, anything further, gentlemen?
Is there any way that we can most people are coming at 5:30 to come early?
Well, we might have some discussion. I don't know. That's
We just email them? If they're on the road, I mean,
A little short notice.
They're coming from Winnipeg.
we just let them know that.
I don't think
they're
they're
going. Don't know how to use it.
It's there.
Well,
I don't have that much.
no, this is for
Bylaw consultant.
the consultants in camera position.
I'm sorry.
We've got a few things to cover, so it might be okay for 5. All right, anything further on the agenda? All right, hearing nothing further, all those in favor?
Aye.
Carried, thank you. Moving on to the minutes of the previous meeting, be it resolved that the minutes of the June 6, 2023 regular council meeting be adopted as presented. Erwin, thank you. Second, Ian, thank you. Any comments on the minutes?
No.
Thorough as usual. All right, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. I will skip the delegations because they are not coming tonight. I'm glad they let us know. So we'll move on to the committee reports. I'll start with Public Works for June 21st, 2022. The number to call Public Works for an after-hours emergency is 204-756-2568. I hope that doesn't mean that residents are calling personal cell phones of Public Works employees. If all goes well, our new garbage and recycling area will be opening on June the 30th. Residents will have received a pass with their tax notices. We are obligated under our environmental license to staff this facility and to have specific hours. So those hours of operation will be 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily from May the 1st to October 31st. During the winter, the hours will be 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and we will be closed on Tuesday and Wednesday. Until our new site is open, all appliances, barbecues, furniture, beds, mattresses, etc. must be transported by the resident or the contractor to the Traverse Bay landfill site. Once we are open, fees will be charged for items the same as they are at the Traverse Bay landfill site. They do not belong dumped in the Public Works yard.
Right.
Please consider putting a garbage bag inside your bear-resistant bins. Our garbage truck does not come with an automated lift and therefore it must be lifted by hand, and sometimes they are extremely heavy. The roads in the RM have all been graded and dust control is complete. Bagged leaves and brush are being picked up on a daily basis, and Public Works has taken between 15 and 20 truckloads of bagged leaves to the Traverse Bay landfill. The RM of Victoria Beach can no longer accept household hazardous waste or e-waste recyclable items as directed by the province. Preventative maintenance is ongoing on all municipal equipment. Water samples from the Wells Firewall and the Outer Beach Pump House are taken into Winnipeg regularly for mandatory testing, and the Victoria Beach Pump House as well, the 8th Avenue Water Treatment Plant. Prep work has been completed for the accessible washrooms at the tennis court. And that is the Public Works report. Any comments, questions? Hearing none, I'll move on to Finance. Mr. Chadsey.
The operating budget cash position is in good shape. Outstanding property taxes are actually down a bit. The budget for the first 5 months of this year, I think, is on track. We've got 10% of our revenue in so far this year compared to the budget, so it's 205,000 versus, and expenses are in line with the budget so far this year. That's all I have.
Okay. Any questions on finance, gentlemen? All right, thank you very much, Ian. Moving on to.
Excuse me, can I interrupt for one moment? It's
I
day
have
drop.
Excuse me, I have no idea who's talking to me.
I'm sorry, I was registered for a delegation and I understand that. Is it during the item or is it before the meeting? I apologize.
That's okay, Dave, you're further down the agenda.
I see, I apologize. Thank you.
Number 8 on the agenda. And we're at number 5. Okay, moving on to fire protection. Steve, do you have a fire report? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I was just pulling it up. Okay, so there were 4 calls in May, 2 in the RM of Victoria Beach and 2 in the RM of Alexander. One of the calls in the RM of Victoria Beach was for a motorcycle on fire in a structure. There were no injuries and just some smoke damage to the structure. Again, this is in May. This does not have anything to do with the Albert Beach fire. The second call was in the RM of Victoria Beach for an alarm company. The contractor set off the alarm by accident and could not call the alarm company to tell them what had happened. Another call was to the RM of Alexander, which was for someone trying to burn some grass, and the fire got away from them. No damage or injuries occurred in this fire. The other call in the RM of Alexander was to the Travers Bay dump. This fire spread into the nearby brush area, and conservation was called to assist while the fire department assisted by equipment from the RM of Alexander, which worked to put out the garbage fire. These types of fires are bad in that the fire can smolder for weeks underground and then ignite again, usually on the driest and windiest days. The RM of Alexander sent a crew the following day to complete the put out of any smoldering spots and cover the garbage with clay and dirt to stop any future fires. Once again, we find ourselves in another drought year, and despite the tremendous amount of rain we experienced last year, there was still not enough water to saturate the water table to pre-drought levels. This and our old growth highly flammable forest has left us in a precarious position. Residents are reminded to review the Fire Smart initiative and enact all that is reasonable for your property. This includes beautifying your property by removing and replacing coniferous trees with drought-resistant deciduous species, removing all material from under your residence, ensuring you have at least a 5-meter gap between you and the trees around you where possible, utilizing wood chips and weighty mulch around your trees to reduce moisture evaporation. This does not include leaves, by the way. So if you're going to use leaves, which is actually a very good thing to do, put leaves, then some heavy mulch on top. So in that way, the leaves, if they do catch on fire, don't blow away easily. Clean out your eaves troughs. Add non-combustible 3 millimeters screens to external vents. This will prevent the fire embers from being able to get inside of your house if there is a wildfire. Move firewood at least 10 meters away from your home, and residents can also find more information at firesmartcanada.ca. Just a reminder, this does not mean clear cutting your property. The fire department continues to train and maintain equipment and gear in preparation for the forecasted hot and dry summer season. And again, just a reminder, we are officially in another drought year for our area.
And we do have a fire ban on, which means no backdoor fire, backyard fires, no fireworks.
No lighting
fire.
grass on fire for what reason I don't understand.
Yeah. All right. Any comments, questions? All right. Thank you, Steve. Moving on to police. Erwin?
Thank you, Member Morse. Our police department has been busy. A few highlights. Rightfully, we have had our very first raid entry to a shed or garage this year. I think the presence of police is a wonderful return. There were 3 bike patrols completed during the month. There were 12 foot patrols. Our chief constable is out walking the trails and familiarizing himself with Victoria Beach. And I think it's really good. You get a much greater appreciation of details of our community by walking. On the highway speed enforcement, there were 76 laser incidents recorded. There were moments of that. There were 13 highway traffic tickets handed out. I think it's good to see that our police force are Monitoring speed, it's an area, it's a concern on a number of roads, Saffy Road, David Road, 8th Avenue, and, the presence of the laser. I think will eventually get people to slow down. There was one dog bylaw ticket for someone with an off-leash dog, and there were 3 parking bylaw tickets issued. And 1 open liquor ticket issued.
Well, the beach.
Is that on the beach?
It doesn't say, more than likely it would have been a park. Any questions?
Not for me.
Did I see 2 arrests on there?
Yes, there were. We don't get details of those arrests. If they are convicted, then that information will become public. I could inquire of,
It's not our business, really.
Just curious.
All right. Any further questions for the police report? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Erwin. Special events. We have two events coming up in August for the Lake Winnipeg Foundation in support of. Walk for Water is on August 13th, and the Bike to the Beaches is on August 11th. That's about all I have so far for special events. So, golf course, Ian?
Golf course? Golf course is open and ready for business. I think for the most part it's on track. They did lots of fertilizer, but they've been taking pretty good care of the fairways, and now they're focusing on the greens.
Any comments? All right. Municipal buildings, Mr. Randall, you're always busy.
Yeah, there's lots to do. Just running through the list briefly. The village green washroom, Lon and I will be working on documentation for the public tender that we will go out soon. The doctor's cottage, there's been trees marked for removal, and I communicated with Captain McKibben recently, so things that were pretty much under control. The doctors committee did a wonderful job. They had about 10 volunteers. They cleaned everything up, and there's a couple of loose ends that I'm going to follow through on. As far as the stairs, the never-ending stair from Dick Dynasty has so far completed 3 of 8 repairs, and he's working hard to get the rest of it done. And we've asked him to prioritize on the basis of user safety. So that's what he's assured me he's doing. Also, there's sort of an official evaluation of handrail upgrades that we're considering, that we're looking at. Penny and I were working on that, and Penny and her husband did a very extensive and exhaustive inventory of all of our handrails. He must have worn out at least one tape measure to get it
You
all.
didn't get them all, though, I have to say. You didn't get them all.
Yeah, absolutely. And last but not least, the number 4 Bayview Stairs, ongoing never-ending project. The site work has been done, and we're coordinating the rest of the work, the welding and the woodwork, and a lot of that is with thanks to Councillor Chadson, who took this project in hand and put together a package to make it happen. With the golf course, the re-roofing of the 2 shelters in the garage has been completed. That's done. An accessible ramp will be coming up later on. We've already awarded the contract to Dick Dynasty, but that will be done perhaps in July or maybe even August. But we got to give them a chance to catch up with these damn stairs first. The BB store, the drywall repairs and the painting and other repairs have all been completed. And we've also given approval to upgrade the LED light, which made sense to Lon and I and to the rest of us. With the bakery, 3 new electric circuits have been completed, and that pretty well clears the deck between us and the bakery and electrical stuff. We hope we hope. And as most of you know, we dodged a budgetary bullet by not having to do the 203 this year, and maybe never will. They're getting by pretty well, so let's leave all that alone.
Good.
With the barracks, interior deficiencies were looked after by Mike Sandyman. Repairs to the exterior siding and skirting trim are still pending with by Best Buy. And a note to Lon here, if Best Buy doesn't come through and perform on that in the near future, I would withhold their final payment in August. I send a message, no nonsense. With the Moonlight Inn, I have a separate report on the Friends of the Inn. The next committee meeting will be June 23rd, and the target start date for renovations would be almost immediately following the September long weekend closure. That's our target. We'll see how it works out in the results of our meeting on the 23rd. Relocation of the Albert Beach accessibility. The site works complete and the tank is installed. And the contractor is going to start working on the building itself soon. I haven't been over there for a few days, but I think he's getting close to. He was bringing in the materials since we awarded the contract. And like everything else, the price increased over time from the original quote, but it was manageable, and we decided to go along with it. Relocation of the roof structure across the street. There's some activity there today. We managed to clear the all that red tape BS with the engineering study. They give us the go ahead, and we're working on it. So we hope to have that roof re-erected soon, and then we can arrange to bring the sea in for our friends, the police. And last but not least, there's a bunch of new benches and bike stands that we have awarded a contract, and these have been completed and delivered, and we're leaving it in Elaine's hands as to who she goes about to. She's got various requests, and she'll fill them as best she can. And that completes the municipal buildings report for today.
I don't think you have enough to do, Grant.
Yeah, right, I should get on.
Thank you very much. Any comments?
My compliments to the Public Works for finally moving out the doctor's privy. Not only was it unsightly, but it posed a hazard.
Oh,
So it's gone.
my understanding that Wayne's back over.
Thanks to Wayne.
All right, but Public Works does deserve some credit for work that they've done on the doctors. There's no doubt about it. And we just got to get rid of some nuisance trees, and then we'll be caught with requests or requirements for the column. These perhaps.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Graham?
I would only say that there's one additional item to put on the list of things with the doctor's office, but that's going to come in a minute. So.
Okay, as a matter of fact, it comes right now. You're up, Steve, Doctor's Cottage.
So as Graham pretty much wrote my report for me practically, and what he just said, there's going to be a lot of redundancy aside from about one or two things. So there were several dead trees that have been marked with pink ribbon tape, with the exception of several that the committee could not get into the bush to mark. The property has been cleaned. The dead trees on the property have been cleared, the ones that have fallen anyway, and placed in 2 piles on 6th Avenue. The eaves troughs have also been cleaned. There are still a few things left to do in the cottage, but largely it will be fully ready for the first doctor to move in. Here's the additional item is that the toilet is leaking a bit, which obviously is going to get remedied shortly. The air purifiers have also been set up, thanks to Public Works for delivering them. And also the committee would like to thank whomever it was who cleaned the windows, the window boxes, or assuming that it was Tam Scott, but whoever did it, they're looking great. I'd also just like to bring up too that we do have to also remember that the committee, aside from myself, is made up entirely of volunteers. So there has been, not intentionally, but more and more expectations of the volunteers when it comes to the doctor's office. So I just think moving forward, we really need to look at, you know, how much we can expect from volunteers to really be doing to help set up the doctor's office. After all, at the end of the day, it is a public service of which we are offering. It might be a private business for the doctors, but you know, there's only so far that you can ask people to go. And so I just think that we need to, moving forward, really take a look as to how much responsibility we're putting onto the committee to complete.
They do have terms of reference, right? So if we're going to change that, you need to have a conversation with the committee and council and see where we can go to make it somewhat easier.
Yeah, and it's not like anything's, you know, overly unreasonable in terms of you know, everything that we've all signed off on. It's just, again, we're not talking about people who are in their 20s and eager and getting paid for this. So it's just things add up after a little while. So I think it would be good to go back and take another look as to how much responsibility we're putting onto their shoulders to get some of these things done. A good example is marking the dead or dying trees on the property. They can access a lot of it, but they can't access all of it easily.
Okay. Thank you. Erwin?
Steve, can you advise whether we have a full slate of doctors for July and August?
Not quite yet. That is actually going to be in the next Herald article. There's a couple weeks that we are trying to fill up. Unfortunately, we are just as much a victim of the doctor shortages as anybody else. If you know of any doctors who can easily jump back on board, or just jump on board for the first time, then yeah, get in contact with myself. My contact information is on the website, our website, or in touch with Kathy McKibben, and we'll be able to fill those last 2 weeks, I think it is.
Okay, thank you. And it should be noted that Kathy McKibben is retiring from her volunteer position as chair of the Doctors Committee this year. So on behalf of council, I'd like to thank her for her efforts over the last, I would say, probably 10 years. So the committee is looking for any volunteers, so please contact Kathy or Councillor Asperby. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, and thank you again.
All right.
It's worth noting that, you know, Victoria Beach is unique in that we are one of the very few recreational municipalities that has an active doctors committee functioning in our community during July and August.
Okay.
I think that, and sorry not to take up too much more time here, but I'll make this quick. I think that not now, but I think especially with this problem with the doctor shortages that, and this is not the committee talking, this is myself, we should take a look at some point in the not too distant future, and this would be for another council, to really consider updating that cabin a little bit more to possibly try to entice some more doctors here. It's just because the problem is going to get worse, a lot worse, before it gets better. And so going into the next several years, you know, we have our list of which we go back to again and again and again, but having those little amenities, shall we say, it just helps to entice them to want to come to VB.
Perhaps.
We've never heard, well, we listen as best we can, but we've never heard that the condition of the cottage or the amenities has really had anything to do with whether you signed on or
No, but I mean, every little bit that you can do to try to entice a doctor to come down,
I won't argue,
you know,
that.
such as air conditioning.
There is air
It's got-
conditioning.
It's got air conditioning.
I know that, but we just did that recently. But that's sort of what I'm saying, is that those little things start to add up. And they do help to entice people to come down.
On the other hand, it also is free accommodation. They're not, the doctors aren't obligated to stay there. If they have somewhere else to stay, they're certainly able to do that. But this is free accommodation for the work they do give to our community. So that's something to consider. Okay, thank you very much, Steve. Moving on to communications. We have started our council news article in the BB Herald. First edition of the summer is this week. We will continue to update our website with local notices and important information. And we continue to ask residents to sign up for BB Connect, our emergency and information service. You can sign up through our website at victoriabeach.ca or contact our office in Winnipeg for assistance if you're having trouble. You can choose how we reach you in an emergency. Your landline, your cell phone, by text or by email, or all of the above. So, you know, given some of the recent catastrophes, a bus accident could be one of our tragedies. So we need to be able to get in touch with people. Fire, tornado, flooding, those are important things that you don't want to miss out on. So we need to get in touch with you when these happen. So please go to Connect. And Steve will say, use your BB address. Correct, Steve?
Revolution.
Yeah. The other thing I would say on that is that, you know, you mentioned that it's our emergency communication system, but it's still not complete the way that it should be. Even the sign up, and I understand that the company that we signed up with to install the system is now different, and it's a little bit more difficult to deal with. But it, you know, it should not allow you to put an address outside of Victoria Beach Inn. So it's those little things that start to add up. But we also need to complete it for, exactly as you said, a fire or tornado, flooding, all of those things, because the intention of the system is to tell you specifically what you should be doing based on a preset scenario. And until we get that set up, then the community is at risk, because ultimately we can send out a message saying that there's a fire, but not everybody should do the same thing. And depending on where the fire is, you should do something else. Same way as with flooding. My area is not going to get flooded, but if we suddenly send out a message saying that there's mass flooding, we don't want to start a panic. So we need to finalize that system. Maybe it is hiring an additional body to get the thing finalized, whatever it is, but it's something that we need to do really quickly, because at some point our luck's going to run out and there will be a catastrophe, and that system, for all that we've done in terms of talking about it, will not be ready to help residents exactly what they should be doing.
Well, I think it's in the messaging as well. You know, Herman and I were at an emergency measures seminar this morning in the city, and you have to be clear and concise in your messaging. And that goes a long way. To say it's not functional or doesn't work properly sends the wrong message. It does work. But
It does work, but we're supposed to be allowed to have presets. So then we can have a list of preset scenarios, and all Brad has to do is click two buttons and it sends out that preset scenario based on where XYZ is happening. So as an example, if the fire is on the south side of the island, right along the highway, the last thing you want to do is to tell everybody to run down and get into your cars and go, because they're going to be heading straight into the danger area. If there's a fire that is that starts up over on the north side, then most of the people on the south should evacuate by the highway, and anybody on the north side who is close to the water should head directly to the water. So all of those scenarios can be put into the system ahead of time, so then you're told specifically what you should be doing at that moment. So yes, it's all in the messaging, but we can have all that messaging planned and programmed ahead of time and as clear and concise as possible.
Steve, the only problem with that is, you know, in a catastrophe, in a fire, in a tornado, you've got a situation that is constantly evolving. And we don't have a quarterback sitting on top of Victoria Beach that can call the play and go to tell us which way to go. You know, unfortunately, it's a pretty simple evacuation plan. It's only one way out.
So this is not coming from me alone. This is also coming from Brad. And when we set up the system, one of the things that was so exciting about it was that we would have that ability to do that. And yes, you're right, things are changing all the time, but you can have, again, as many scenarios as you want programmed into it. And, you know, you're going to get a fairly concise message with those. So that was the intent of the system originally. And we need to fulfill that because it will save lives.
Don't disagree with you, but we also need to move on. So thank you. Summer Information Office, our Summer Information Office is ready to go. Is no one going to be there on Thursday to hand out passes for permanent residents? And that kind of thing? Caitlin, okay, thank you. So they will be open this Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. up to and including Sunday, September 3rd. The staff at the Information Office are members of our community and they are doing their jobs. One of the biggest complaints we hear is that there are too many vehicles in the vehicle restricted area. Well, the contractors and the services do not come in looking for work. We call them to come in and provide a service. So we all have a role in limiting the unnecessary vehicle traffic during the summer months. Any abuse of our staff, will not be tolerated. Moving on, building inspector. Back to you, Grant.
Okay, thank you to our building inspector Curtis for his report for the month of May. One public washroom, well, that was mine. Approved. 2 garages, 2 bunkhouses, 3 decks, 2 sheds, 1 fence, 1 development. I'd like to see those development permits, they're important. 1 addition and 1 rent, that's another one. We got 3. That permit $274,000, fees collected $5,000 change. Year-to-date value of permits, $1,400,000, and the fees collected $18,421. So we're running a little bit behind our best year over the year before last, but it's coming along. I think we Curtis had agreed on something else we were looking at that we could say over the last few years we've had an average of 10 permits a month that have been issued for builders. So it's still a growing community. Now, seeing as how I see that happening in my microphone in front of me, I wanted to digress just for a second. Yeah, right. One other officially recognized committee that prepares a report every month is the Friends of the Inn Committee. I can be allowed to just briefly report on that. I'd like to say that there was a very large and enthusiastic crowd that attended the public meeting on June 10th at the BB Clubhouse. Thank you to the Clubhouse personnel, particularly Heather, for accommodating us. It went very, very well. It was chaired by Doug Pollard and assisted by Dean Severson. Following the introduction of the committee members, Doug proceeded to outline our objectives in renovating the inn and explain the funding scheme. The total cost of the project is going to be pretty close to $500,000, but it's been underwritten by an anonymous donor, including all architectural and project management fees. Council had previously spent about $15,000 for structural and geotechnical engineering services, which both showed encouraging results. We felt it was necessary that we take the first step to make sure that this thing was feasible and viable before we go any further. So we paid for that, and so we should. Public donations may also be solicited for funding much needed repairs to the log cabin and future developments. Kind of the high point of the meeting is that there was absolutely overwhelming approval when Doug asked those assembled if they agreed with our plan. So it was very well done by all of us.
Doug did an exceptional job.
Yep.
So did Dean in explaining the plans.
Just to clarify, there are no specific plans in place for the log cabin. And that's been defined as the next project, and it will be looked at because the foundation is simply logs on and they are deteriorating. But the current renovation plans for the Moonlight Inn do not include anything at this stage. They will be dealt with at a stage. And we're indeed, it's tremendous that we have such great community support and generous donors who come forward. It's really quite remarkable. Thank you.
Agreed. Thank you. Any comments? All right. Thank you very much. Moving on to accessibility. Our accessibility committee met a week or so ago to review our plans and our progress on accessibility matters in the community. We have completed the groundwork for the Albert Beach accessible washroom, and we are waiting for the structure, as Graham mentioned earlier, and the mobility mats. They are coming as well. It is encouraging that other communities near us, like Lester Beach and Grand Beach, also have accessibility mats in place, and they're getting a lot of use. We are looking at wayfinding routes, possibly signposts pointing to washrooms, facilities, amenities. And we are also on Elaine's list for benches for people to rest on. We have a couple of priority pathways that are where people walk. For instance, our first priority is from the end of Pelican Point, where it meets Bayview, into the Village Green. It's a very long stretch, and there are very few benches. So that's, I put my request in with Public Works, so thank you for getting those benches done, Graham.
Yeah.
Any questions on accessibility? Okay, thank you. Heritage and trails, on to you, Steve.
So on trails, there's a new initiative from the TCT to update their signage. We're going to need to apply to get the new signage and create a plan for its installation. The new Trail Association has some fairly weighty objectives, but I would say that all of them are achievable with council support and willingness to maintain and address issues in the trail system. While there has also been a lot of positive input from the community to the news of this association and also from council, it is important to note that at this time the board has been formed and regrettably cannot entertain any additional members. There was actually a small surge of people who are interested in joining the board when news was announced. News was announced. So yeah, it's far more than full. The board is already quite large. For Heritage, just a couple quick notes. First of all, from Lon, I know that he is intent on getting the Heritage page on the website, sort of updated and finalized and everything else. There is no rush because there's quite a bit to do on that, and obviously we're about to go into our busy season. I would also note that we've been pushing this further and further down the road, and that as has been noted by Mayor McMorris, this last little while we've lost Chuck Einfield, as well as Kim Blakery, I think her name is. I'm probably butchering that name and I apologize. There we go. So these are two people who invested a lot in our community. Probably have or had some really amazing stories to tell, and now we've lost that ability to tell those stories. And having a site where people can tell their stories, they can be reviewed by a committee before they're uploaded onto a website, and then have it there for all to see and for it to be permanent allows us to maintain our history and our heritage. And the longer we kick this can down the road, the more of this loss that we're going to have. So we need, again, the ability to upload photos, the ability to upload videos and our stories of the community. So again, I'm not trying to put any pressure. I'm only saying that this is something that we have been kicking down the road, and we do at some point really need to get this this page finalized.
All right, on that note, I sent to council 3 links to 3 videos that are on YouTube.
Amazing, just amazing.
That were done about community members, narrated by community members. They're really quite interesting. There's one on fishing, there's one on the mink ranching, and there's one on sort of daily life in Victoria Beach. So those are available on YouTube. You can contact me, the public, if they need to know where they are, and I think we could probably put links to them on our website.
Yep.
And I'm also, right with you, Erwin, sorry, there's also a grand opening of the East Beaches Heritage Museum, grand reopening in Grand Marais, and that is on Friday, June 30th at 3 p.m. And we provided a $2,000 grant to the museum, which allowed them to then secure other funds to get some much needed electronics repaired and replaced. And they do have a small section on BB and on art history. So I'll be attending that grand reopening. To say a few words.
What's the date?
It is Friday, June the 30th at 3 p.m. in Grand Marais. So please feel free to come out, join the celebration, and have a look at this wonderful little museum.
It's literally like the day before I could fully commit to going to that.
Can't be everywhere, Steve.
Steve, just a question. Again, just to remind everyone, the trails are owned by the municipality. And I'm wondering whether this new Trails Committee is going to be preparing some sort of a protocol which would outline how any requests for change that they might wish to make could be presented to council. Obviously, outlining the scope of work, any potential costs, any funding requirements from the municipality. Is that sort of thing in the works?
Yeah, those discussions have already been had. I'd also just remind all of council that you know, I've put forward a request to have very specific maintenance requests put up onto the website to allow for Public Works and the Trail Association. This one now, but is more so for volunteers. But obviously, with this Trail Association, they will have volunteers, but to basically have a method by which Public Works and the volunteers can start talking to each other, so everybody's on the same page. One of the biggest problems that that we've been facing up until now is that volunteers have been going into the trail system and doing what they think needs to be done to the trail system. In large part, they're correct, but a really good/bad example is that somebody has gone in multiple times to one spot along the Schoolhouse Trail and dumped non-A base along that stretch, and I'm not even sure what kind of gravel it has been, but it's some sort of really permeable sand, and you can't you can't ride a bike through there. It just goes straight down into the sand. So there needs to be some work on our side to have a proper reporting system, but they do want to work directly with council in order to not step on anybody's toes and create a proper process by which we do this together rather than in opposition.
Thank you very much. All right. Anything further? All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Be it resolved to accept the monthly committee reports as presented. May I have a mover? Ian, thank you. Second? Graham, thank you. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the accounts and finances. Be it resolved that the following list of accounts be approved for payment. Accounts payable checks 11289 to 11343 for a total of $95,079.53. Ian, would you like to move this?
Yes.
Thank you. Second? Ian, or pardon me, looking at the screen. Steve? Thank you. Ian, would you like to speak to this?
Sure, just a few comments. As you mentioned, $95,000 roughly, 54 checks are going out. It's going through the line items. Hydro is about $3,100. Geotechnical, as I mentioned, was about $8,500 this month. I think it was $7,000 last month. The one that sort of caught my eye, and I don't know if there's much we can do about it, but we've got phones, with police, public works, fire hall, the gate, golf course, grocery, municipal office. There's golf compression, I don't know what that is. Golf, CRS.
Of course.
Of course.
Of course. Okay. Anyways, so it's $1,260 a month for phones. And I don't know if all those contracts are individual, or do we have ones for blanket portfolio? And it's just something to consider, because if these are all separate and people are making their own deals, you might want to go to tell us and say, look, $1,260 on phones, give us a better deal than that. Just thought. RM Alexandra, we spent $7,100, 50% of the landfill. Is that monthly? Where is that? What is that?
Is that a quarterly bond, the landfill costs?
No, it's just fees for,
But is it
levy. Anything expenses are 50%. You get 50% of the revenue and 50% of the fees, and you pay for tonnage.
But is that monthly, that's $7,100, or is that for 5 months?
No, that's,
Or quarterly?
I can look more into that. I don't.
Because my question really on that one is, once we get our transfer station up and running, do these numbers change at all?
We have a transfer station, that's a landfill. That's everything gets carried to the landfill and then it stays.
Okay,
We're just a transfer station. You bring it here and then it goes.
so there's no savings on that. Okay. And then staff fees, there was just a fuel for public works, $5,000, and waste backhoe for Albert Beach, $7,100. And that's it for accounts.
Okay. Good comments. Thank you. Any questions? All right, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
All right, we are moving into new business. There, Mr. Jopling is with us on the screen. And you are here to talk to us about your proposed subdivision, which involves 3.19 acres of land on Olofsson Boulevard. So we have seen the information from the province. It has been circulated to everyone, as you are well aware. So, Mr. Jopling, is there anything you would like to add?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors. I just wanted to be available if there are any questions. I understand this is not a public hearing. Some background, we want to build a cabin on the remaining larger parcel, and we understand that the variances under the existing zoning bylaw need to occur, but it's consistent with the development plan, and it also consistent with the new draft zoning bylaw that's out right now, understanding that it could change. We do ask that council does not require that the 100-foot water frontage reserve be included as part of the conditional approval. Otherwise, we don't have any concerns with the conditions stated in the provincial planner's report.
I do have a question for you, if you don't mind.
Certainly.
In your subdivision application on page 14 under section 8, sewer and water, you take off both holding tank and septic field, but you then state in page 1 of the proposal that the lot will be serviced with holding tanks for wastewater disposal, and they don't recommend fields. So can you just clarify if it would be tanks?
We would have to comply with the provincial requirement, and my understanding is it would be a tank. So yes, that's fine.
Okay, it just wasn't clear to me, so thank you for that. And I know you're hoping for the new zoning bylaw, so are we, but but the current zoning bylaw does say that those lots are 1 acre with 150 feet of site width. And you're proposing 0.85 of an acre.
Correct.
So that's gonna mean you have to do variances.
That's
Okay.
correct. Yeah,
Right.
and that would be subject to a different hearing, I suppose, in the future. Yeah, and be posted. Sure,
So you're aware of all that.
I am. Thank you for making that point.
You're welcome. All right, anybody else have any questions?
Question, if in fact we approve the subdivision, are we not in fact giving it a de facto approval of the variance?
I suppose essentially we are. What would you say as the planner there, Mr. Topman?
My understanding would be the subdivision would be approved subject to the conditions of the variances going through.
So we could still change our mind on variance. Essentially, the question is, would
Yeah, if
we?
they don't go through, then the subdivision wouldn't go through.
Right. And that wouldn't make you very happy.
That's right.
I'm just afraid that this zoning bylaw of ours is never going to happen. And, you know, you can't be waiting for a new zoning bylaw.
I have no problem doing the variances under the current zoning bylaw.
Okay. All right.
So you're confident you could be compliant with the existing bylaw as far as side lot offset or setbacks?
Yeah, I'm not proposing any building as part of the application. I'm just proposing certain lots. So the two variances I'll need for the smaller of the two are frontage from 150 to 107. And as I mentioned, in the current zoning bylaw, it's 100. So it's still larger than what's being proposed in the draft bylaw, but it needs to be varied into the current bylaw. And then the lot size, as the mayor mentioned, it's a minimum of 1 acre. That's allowed when you're creating a lot, but I have 0.8. And under the draft zoning bylaw, I think it's like 15,000 square feet. So it's well above what the future intention is for the zone, but I don't meet it under the current zoning bylaw.
In the diagram, it's a little confusing because it looks very long and thin, but it is quite wide.
Yeah, it's very, very long and thin. Yeah. And half of it is the it's very long and the frontage road there's 107 and it's a little bit narrower at the water edge.
Planning has recommended that there be a 30-meter setback for the riparian area, that there's no building on it and it's left with vegetation. Are you fine with that?
Yes, I'm aware of that and I have no problems with that.
What is the width at the water line of the lot?
At the water lines of lot 2?
Yes.
Lot 2 is only 40 feet approximately.
So say the middle of that lot, then what would the width be?
I've asked the surveyor. What I've done is I've asked the surveyor to measure a setback of approximately 40 or 50 feet back from the road where you typically would build a cabin. And at that point, it's about 100 feet wide, which would be typical and consistent with the width of an average lot.
Great. Yeah, that was my question. Thanks.
Dee, you had your hand up?
Well, I suppose it average lot outside the PRA, but yeah, no, I mean, you know, I'm typically against subdivisions. In this situation, the former owners stripped it bare, so I don't really see an issue there as long as the erosion, like there are things in place to try to limit as much erosion as possible, and trying to be as consistent with the Baird report as possible, then I'm perfectly fine in accepting this. I don't really see any major problems with this. As was mentioned, it's kind of a strange looking lot. It's just, you know, comes down to that point, but I don't really have any issues other than that.
David, perhaps you can qualify this comment. My understanding of that area of the beach actually grows as opposed to being eroded.
Yeah, that's correct. This area doesn't really have much erosion, and in fact, the former owner has applied for accretion, which is the opposite. It's getting a little bit larger. The sand tends to come in right there a bit, and well, it changes every year, so it's noted, and the flood elevation of 220 feet is at the toe of our slope, which is 50 meters back from the water's edge. So there's plenty of ability, and it's part of the requirements of what's outlined in the provincial report, indicating that protection is in place where the building will be located. So I have no concerns with that. And Councillor Axworthy, you'd be happy to hear my wife is planting trees and bushes rather diligently.
Okay, any other questions for council? Frank?
Just to put it in context, Councillor Kump advises that you have not yet applied for the variance.
This is step number one, this one.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
That's correct.
Okay,
If the subdivision doesn't go through, then I won't be applying for the variance.
right. Have you considered leaving that one lot as 1 acre?
We liked the configuration as it is. There's a number of reasons, and we hope everything works out, but we would prefer to leave it as is.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? And I probably should have read the resolution to begin with. Whereas council has received a proposed subdivision involving 3.19 acres of land in Yarmouth, Victoria Beach at 5 Old Wilson Boulevard, which will result in the creation of 1 new cottage lot. Therefore, be it resolved to approve the application for the proposed subdivision file number 4198-23-7725 with the following conditions of approval. Number 1, that a development agreement is entered into with the Yarmouth Victoria Beach, including the following provisions. A, that all new structures on the proposed lots be built to an elevation of 220.06 meters or 722 feet. That permanent structures be set back from the top of the embankment or the shoreline of an adjoining water body sufficient distance to allow for erosion and instability over the ensuing 50-year period, that a 30-meter riparian setback be established and maintained with undisturbed native vegetation from the ordinary high water mark, and D, that any other public works deemed necessary by council as noted. I haven't heard anything noted by council. And number 2, that variance order to be obtained is required to ensure compliance with the Victoria Beach planning scheme. I need a mover. Erwin, thank you. Second, Ian, thank you. So my apologies, I did that backwards. Any further discussion on this subdivision application? It should be noted that the province did recommend that it go through with these conditions. And the province, as Dave knows and as council knows from a couple of subdivision approvals, they do go through quite a vigorous check and through numerous departments. All departments, yeah. And I noticed there was one thing, Mr. Jogging, on heritage, which is up to you to fulfill. And I thought it was rather interesting, that provincial requirement.
That's an archaeological study.
Historical archaeological study. All right, any further discussion, gentlemen? Anything further you'd like to add, Mr. Johnson?
No, thank you very much for your time.
All right, so gentlemen, you've heard the presentation, you've heard the resolution.
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried, unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Dogling. Best of luck. All right, we will now move into
There's an addition.
new business. Oh,
The variation application.
yep. So the addition to our agenda, be it resolved to approve a one-year extension for variation application 2021/02, originally approved on 7th of December 2021. May I have a mover? Ian, thank you. Second? Graham, thank you. Council received this information in your council package. Is there any concerns with this variation extension request?
It's my understanding that it's fairly routine to allow a second home extension.
Yeah, most firms do that.
Yeah.
They're moving into a 2-year window too. You have 2 years to do it instead of 1.
It was approved first time around after due consideration, so this is just minor housekeeping, and thank you, Ron, for looking up the renewals, so this looks okay to me.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you.
And then this one. Moonlight Inn.
And the Moonlight Inn lease, which council received a copy of in their package, or in a separate package. Be it resolved to approve the one-year 2023 Moonlight Inn lease agreement as attached. May I have a mover? Ian, thank you. Second, Graham, thank you. Any discussion, gentlemen? It's a pretty straightforward lease agreement, same as last year, I believe,
In the year before.
and the year before. Steve?
I would just like to remove the clause that prevents them from obtaining a liquor license. Graham, in the email that I sent out, responded with a fairly legit point, which is it's a moot point because they wouldn't necessarily be able to get one in the state that the Moonlight Inn is in right now. That being said, the operators have asked us several times to allow them to get one. One of the times was when we had originally met with this new council, when they had delivered pizzas to our first meeting. It's like Victoria Beach is not a dry community. All you need to do is to go to the recycling depot, and you can see that we're not a dry community. So if we remove that out, then two things can happen. First of all, they can make it a little bit of additional money. Also, customers can have a beer or a glass of wine with their dinners. But the other thing that can happen as well is that it encourages the operator to possibly invest a little bit into the property to try to make it, to be in accordance with the requirements for a liquor license. So I just don't see any reason why we would say you can't have a liquor license. So I would like to remove that.
Well, it's part of the lease, and it has been for several years. Our tenant is well aware that no application for liquor license could possibly succeed because the building does not meet the code and the physical requirements. This is old business after the fact. We should have approved the lease on the Moonlight Inn months ago. So it serves no useful purpose to remove this clause. Of course, Steve, we will reconsider the whole issue in connection with the 2024 lease, but I think we should get this one closed off and done for now.
And Steve, you weren't able to attend the Moonlight Inn meeting, but the question was asked by Mr. Pollard to the group, how do you feel about a liquor license? And some people got up and danced in the aisles. Many people, applauded and said, absolutely, it's about time. So I think, Graham's point is well taken. There's no way they can get a liquor license this year. Their building simply doesn't meet the requirements. But Aaron is fully aware that is something that we would support, I believe, going forward, and he's more than willing to look into it with the new building. Go ahead.
And all of that's perfectly valid, but it's a copy paste issue, right? Every year or every time we renew this, we always put forward the same proposed. So if we remove it now, then that means that we can just get this out of the way. We don't even need to think about it the next time it comes up versus, I don't know, for some reason, I'm not there when this pops up again, and then we have another extended period of time where we're still set back in the 1800s where we won't allow liquor. So if we just remove it now, then that means that issue is taken care of in the future. So it's a proactive move. That's all I'm asking for, is just delete it, get rid of it. It's useless. It's 2023.
I think we should wait for the next lease when we know that it's a viable option for him. If we remove it now, there's no point in removing it now. He can't get one now, so that's something for sure that Aaron will bring to our attention if he's the next leasee in a year.
Yeah, furthermore, I think council is in favor, and the community is certainly in favor of a liquor license, but when we write the liquor license back into the lease, that's when it takes a very careful thought. And wording as far as the restrictions, the times, there's really no reason to go through all of that stuff right now. Let's just push this through and we'll deal with next year, as Aaron well knows.
All right. Good discussion. Thank you. So call the question. All those in favor?
Right.
Opposed? Steve? Thank you. Carried. All right. Thank you for getting that done, Lon. All right, the only other thing on our new business was the e-bikes. Who brought up the e-bikes? Steve. Okay. Go ahead, please, Steve. And then we will be going into correspondence and then in camera. We have people waiting. So go ahead.
Yeah. So I'll make this relatively quick. The issue of e-bikes and electronic motorized vehicles throughout the VRA has been coming up in recent years, justifiably. And our tagline has always been that there's nothing that we can do about it, that it's a provincial decision. And we all know that the province is going to do nothing to put those into the category of being a vehicle. The primary reason being is that they don't go fast enough to designate themselves as a vehicle. That's the reason why electric cars are designated as a vehicle, but an electric bike or those one-wheelers are not designated as a vehicle. So from a provincial standpoint, they don't have a reason to do it, but the province isn't thinking about Victoria Beach and our unique bylaw that we have for the VRA. So it's sort of up to us to remind them or just let them know that, hey, this also affects us by you guys not putting this in the category of a vehicle. So what I would like to do, and we don't have to do it today, we can do it in the next meeting, but I would like to send a letter to the province requesting that they allow our unique situation for our bylaw to allow us to regulate all electric vehicles except for medical vehicles. Obviously those would be exempt. I think it's perfectly reasonable. I think it's understandable that the province would not have us on their radar for something like this, but this would allow them to help us address an issue which is affecting our municipality and the vehicle restricted area.
Anyone riding an e-bike or one of those one-wheelers have to obey the speed limit. But what do we now do when we have two e-bikes in our police department and our CSOs are using them? You know, they're not a vehicle. They're not regulated in terms of having to have a license. You have to wear a helmet. But, you know, I agree the province is not referring to them as a vehicle, and I think for valid reason. They're also used as a mobility device. So
My understanding is that the way the province looks at the electric bike is as pedals, so therefore it's not a vehicle. I think it's the pedals that make the difference.
The basic concern I have is with respect to safety. We have seen these e-bikes come tearing down the hill at well above the acceptable speed. Police forces are limited in terms of their ability to monitor. I think it's obviously the people who need the scooters, the medical assistants, I'm not talking about those. I think the e-bikes have become a potential fairly serious hazard, especially in the VRA where the lanes are narrow, we have some hills. You know, as many people know, I routinely walk with my grandgirls from the parking lot to swimming lessons, etc. And when these people come tearing by on the side, feel uncomfortable.
You could do that on a regular.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the hypothetical case that the province gives us permission to regulate e-bikes, and don't hold me on that, what regulation do we choose to impose other than enforcement of the speed limit? Would that outlaw them?
They're very quiet, that's the complaint I've heard. You can ask them to have a bell, you know, they don't have the rattly fenders and stuff that we have on our beach bikes.
Blame
but-
Marvin Wynn.
Yeah, but right now, I don't think I could support approaching the province on something that we could very easily lose if we push too hard, which is our vehicle restriction.
I think the other thing is I've been in the restricted area and I've seen people tell people to slow down. And it's the same thing, a bicycle, like, you know, I think the restricted area is very good at letting people know that they're going too fast. And I think you don't want to lose that. I don't think you can regulate that.
Question, are we able to legally regulate the speed limit on e-bikes?
They can get a ticket if they're going too fast, but I can get a ticket on my bicycle if I'm going too fast as well. If I have a dog.
Question, do we have the legal authority to ticket someone?
Sure.
Yeah.
Are we sure of that?
Sure. I know people in the city who've received
If you're asking me, I'm not sure. I'll have to look that one up
I know
because
people who've
it's
received tickets. for
traffic
their bikes.
controlled there for motor vehicles,
That's my
registered
point.
motor vehicles.
No, but you can get tickets for riding a bike.
But
on
unless
the
you got a
sidewalk,
bylaw that
going
specifies
through a
it.
stop
I'll have to look.
sign, so you can get tickets for riding a bike.
Could we ask our CEO to provide some clarity on that point?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll look at it. I
Steve
really
has
will.
his hand up. This is going to be a quick discussion. Here we go. Go ahead, Steve.
So here's the difference. A regular bike is powered by your legs, and the last I've checked, and I haven't spent too much time looking, but I don't think that it takes much of an imagination to realize this, is that people don't put their pedal to the metal and bike as hard as they possibly can throughout all of the avenues. The difference with an electric motorized vehicle, you don't have the same limitations on that motor as your legs do. So these companies, and it's not to try to demonize them, this is just a fact because it makes them more sellable, is they push the limit of their vehicles just under the qualifiers of what would define them as a legal vehicle. So I forget what it is in Manitoba. I think back in when I was in BC, it was 60 kilometers an hour. But as an example, my friend who did not have a driver's license got an electric motorized scooter, and it went 59 kilometers an hour. But it had pedals on it, so he was allowed to drive on the road without without a driver's license, just because he had this vehicle that qualified just underneath of what would force it to be a vehicle. So that's kind of the first thing that we need to understand, is that it's a motor, right? So it is going to go anywhere between 0 to whatever the maximum speed is, just underneath of what a vehicle has. The answer to the question in terms of can you ticket them? Yes, you can, because you can ticket a cyclist if they're going above the speed limit. So, I mean, I might be wrong, but my assumption is that you would be able to ticket them as well if you can ticket a cyclist. The other thing that we have to remember is that these machines do not have a speedometer, primarily because they do not qualify as a vehicle. So,
Yeah, no, you're wrong there, Steve. They do have, they show you the speed.
Yeah.
some of them may, but a lot of them are customizable, where you can just simply put on an attachment onto a regular bike, and you just simply flip a switch. And as for the threat of losing the vehicle restriction, I would only remind us that there is a lot of voter power in the VRA, and there is a lot of influence that can befall some of those parties. So if they were even to think about removing that or threaten that, then they would have some real retaliation from the community, and they obviously would not want to entertain that.
Well, see, if the only form of regulation that we might choose to apply to e-bikes is speed, and we've already got that, we're wasting each other's time for it.
Well, I think that there's speed, but I mean, like we've all been, although Ian, you may not have received these because it was definitely more in the years prior to this council. The one-wheelers, we've had numerous emails about that and people being concerned. There were a couple of instances where somebody fell off, hit their head. People have almost been hit by these things. So maybe that's something that, but at the very least, all I'm hearing on a regular basis is, can you guys do something about this? And the answer is always no. You have to petition the province to allow us to do it. But why don't we just simply send a letter off asking if we can regulate them?
Madam Mayor, in the interest of time, can we await a report from our CFO as to our legal ability to find people who are exceeding the speed limit? And then we can reopen this discussion.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think I've said my piece, but yeah, anyway.
Okay, thank you, Steve. All right, thank you, everybody. Correspondence, information, and announcements. The new Traverse Bay landfill and the BB waste and recycling depot passes were in your tax statement mailouts. There was a fee schedule attached from the R of Alexander, the Traverse Bay landfill, same fee schedule that we will be using. We may not be able to take everything that was in that Traverse Bay sheet, but that is the prices. Those are the prices that we'll be looking at. All right, anything else? Zoning bylaw. We have received received a few comments back from associations and residents on the zoning bylaw and the information we send out. It is on our website. We asked for responses by June 15th. We did receive some. Anyone who has responded and who does want to sit down with us virtually or in person, we must have something in writing from you before we sit down. We don't want to sit down and then we want to make this efficient. So we need to know what your concerns are in respect to the zoning bylaw, not any other comments or concerns in advance. So we need that before we sit down with you, well before possible.
Well, there is one group that is perhaps under the impression that they've got a commitment for a time and a date. Perhaps they should be advised that unless you comply with their requirements, that will have to be postponed.
To be clear, we're asking people to take the existing bylaw draft and mark out what they want to change. So it's very clear what your changes are rather than just general comments.
Yeah.
So we can move this process forward.
Exactly. Suggestions, remedies.
Complain, not fix.
All right. Anything else on the zoning bylaw?
Just one question. If someone, individual did have some additional, wanted to make comments that they had not already made, we will still accept their comments and grant them a virtual meeting at some point in the future.
Well, my understanding is this is going to go through 3 readings, so you're going to get lots of comments when we do that. This is not going to stop. This is the initial phase.
The next step was to have individual virtual meetings with each group, one-on-one, not a large group. Correct.
Correct.
Yeah, that's the next step to the meetings.
I would go in camera.
All right.
Whether you do it here or you go in another room. Be up to the presenter.
We do have a presenter here. All right. All right. So we will be going into camera. Be it resolved, the council enter into an in-camera session to hear professional planner proposal presentations which will require confidentiality on behalf of the consent term. Municipal Act states that when a councillor comes,
Nope, you don't have to say.
read that up, thank you. All right, so may I have a mover, join the camera? Ian, thank you, second. Erwin, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. So at this point, we will ask all residents to leave so that we can leave.
This conference will now